When I was young, or younger, however you want to look at it, they used to have a law called the Blue Law. And if you don't know what the Blue Law was a law that said that the only thing you could buy on Sunday was food. Grocery stores could be open, restaurants, but you couldn't buy hardware, lumber, anything other than food. It was against the law to be sold. Then they started kind of relaxing the law a little bit, and you could buy gas, and you could buy this and that, and they didn't even have convenience stores back then. But anyway, I remember going into one of, I guess you'd call it the beginning of the big box stores, and it was a store, I don't think they even have this one around here anymore, but I went into this store, we went in on a Sunday, and there was, groceries on one side and hardware on the other. And I remember seeing a rope pulled across the hardware section because you couldn't shop on that side of the store on Sunday. Then it says they relaxed the laws, and then now we have everything that's open 24 hours a day. There is no such thing as Sunday to some people, right? Because now we can do everything any day of the week. Doesn't it make life so much better? Because now we have everything we need to make our lives convenient, right? We can no longer get away from anything. See, I even remember when the TV used to go off at about midnight or 1 o'clock. The stations would shut down. If you woke up in the middle of the night and you turned on the TV, you'd just get a signal, and that was it. There was no show on. A while back, I get up at about 5 or 5:30, and I looked at my Facebook, and someone said about 3 hours before that said, "Can't sleep." I said, no wonder you're on Facebook. You got to put these things down. You see, we have to know God is calling us as Catholic Christians, as people of faith. God is calling us to step back from the noise, to just enjoy the silence every so often, to step back and listen to the Word of God and let it soak in so that we can know what His will is in our lives. In the gospel today, it talks about the apostles, right? They came back from their journey, right? Last week we heard in the gospel that Jesus sent them out 2 by 2. He gave them power over unclean spirits. They went out and they cast out spirits and they healed people. And when they came back to Jesus, they were excited about what they did, what they taught, what they saw. You see, it was their time to start the action of ministry. They followed Jesus all of this time and watched Him do all of these things. And then He finally says, okay, guys, it's your turn. So He sent them out. Now they come back, and the same thing that happened to Jesus is everybody heard what was going on. So they all wanted to come and get that healing or find that peace. They were all searching for something, and they were hearing about these things, and they thought that was where it was at. And Jesus says that the disciples didn't even have time to eat. So He said, let's go off to a deserted place. That deserted place is that time that we need to find in our lives. That time that we need to sit back and just reflect on what's going on in our lives. To sit back and look at the blessings that God is pouring upon us each and every day. That deserted place is that time when we can stop, take away all the distractions, and let the Word of God soak into our lives. See, that's what He's calling us to, right? That's the example that's in the gospel today. Go off to this deserted place and just rest. How often do we take time to rest? When my kids were growing up, I always said that I used to call the TV the audio-visual respirator. Because as soon as somebody woke up in the morning, the TV went on, and it didn't go off until everybody was in bed. I said, I don't think y'all can breathe without the TV on. Now we turn it off more often. What is it that we have in our lives that's so important that we can't just step back and take that time of rest, to enjoy that time of peace, to listen to God? During the week, I went into a house, and the lady has a small wind chime that, when you go from the kitchen into the living room through that doorway, this little wind chime hangs above the door. And I call those small little bitty wind chimes, that most people think they're for decoration, but I call that a hearing aid to the voice of God. Because if we remember in the Old Testament, it said that God wasn't in the fire. He wasn't in the earthquake. He was in the gentle breeze. See, that's where we need to listen for the voice of God. But we need to get away from the distractions. We need to turn off those things that keep interrupting us. We need to be able to step back and allow God to soak in. You see, at the end of the gospel, it says that when Jesus disembarked from that boat, he saw the vast crowds, and they looked like lost sheep, sheep without a shepherd. You see, Jesus wants to be our shepherd. He wants to be the Lord of our lives, because here we are just kind of wandering around through life with no direction. And he wants to be that direction for us. But we have to stop and listen. We have to stop and allow him to move in and take over so that he can be the Lord of our life. And the only way to do that is to be able to spend time with him. You know, I kept telling myself when preparing that I wasn't going to say this quote, right? But it is my favorite quote from St. Francis de Sales. And I know you've heard it many times, and I'll say it until it catches on. St. Francis de Sales said that everybody needs a half an hour of prayer every day, unless you're busy. Then you need an hour. Because he's telling us the busier we are in life, the more we need to realize how much more we need Jesus Christ to be the Lord of our life. The more we need to surrender to him so that he can take over and lead us where he wants us to be. And that's with him in heaven. And we can only get there by building on that relationship. See, yesterday was a great day for St. Mary's. We had our first married couples retreat. And we had 6 couples that spent the day right here in the community center, that walked away from everything else in life just to spend time together to learn how to deepen their relationship. And like I said the other day when I made that announcement, to deepen our relationship with each other is to get closer to God. And that's what it was all about. And they surrendered the day to find out how to do that. And it was an awesome day. But you see, we all need to be able to step back. We all need to be able to surrender that time that Jesus is calling us to surrender, to get those distractions from interrupting the voice of God in our life. Because like I said, Jesus wants to be the Lord of our lives. He wants us to surrender our hearts to him so that he can stop us from wandering around this life aimlessly. Are we willing to surrender that time, to step back and listen to the voice of God? Are we ready to allow Jesus to be the Lord of our life?